Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to another edition of In Conversation with. This afternoon, again, it's my privilege to talk to my very long-standing business partner, Ajay Lalu. He's up from Cape Town for a couple of days for some work in Joburg, and I thought, let me use this opportunity for him, I guess, for him and I to catch up. So we're going to spend 25, 30 minutes just talking about a couple of things. Ajay, welcome. Thanks for making some time to chat this afternoon.
Thanks, Sanjay. So, firstly, you didn't give me a choice, right? I'm here under duress.
That's what happens when you have business partners. Sometimes you've got to ask, sometimes you've got to tell. So thank you again. Before I get into some of the things we want to chat about, let me perhaps just set the scene. We met 27 odd years ago.
Sure.
When we were hooligans at best.
Yes.
Perhaps I'm going to lead it off by asking you, perhaps share an anecdote of our earlier days when we were part of, I guess, a big professional services firm. What are some of your earlier memories of us in that environment?
You know, it's the kind of dawn of democracy, right? And there's this transformation which is happening in corporate South Africa. And I think for both of us, it was a privilege to have been part of that changing of the country, but also within corporate South Africa. And I think for me, the early days were really largely about, you know, us looking out for each other. And my earliest memories of how we really connected at a much deeper level was this kind of battle that I think black people face.
Yeah.
In back then in corporate South Africa, right? Laying claim to their rightful place, making sure that the pay that they received was fair, bonuses were allocated fairly, job allocations were done correctly and fairly, without prejudice. And I think, when you bond on values issues like that,
Yeah.
it's a bond which I think is deeply rooted in who we are and what takes us through the tough times and the easy times.
I'm going to come back to something, fight the good fight. And we're going to talk a bit about that just now. Back in the day, we were still very much in the minority in professional services. And, when you look back 25, 30 years, we've come a long way. Just by way of further background, Ajay and I have been involved in a couple of businesses, and we're going to get to the blacklite story just now. And so we've known each other through work, but outside of work for many, many, many years. I'm going to switch gears. We've been involved in our current business for the last 12, 15 odd years.
15 years.
15 years. Blacklight this year, 15 years. So I'm going to ask you a very interesting question. You're at dinner. You are at a dinner table with 7 people that you don't know. What would you tell them about the business of Blacklight Consulting?
I would say that we are simply change agents. That the work that we do is profound in its impact, but most people that will benefit from it will never know that it's the advice that we gave to a corporate or a multinational, that has resulted in them benefiting from that, right? I think that's how I would frame what Blacklight Consulting does.
Change agents. Often enough, we see lots of people, we meet lots of people at events, our clients, and whatever it is. And we hear this often enough. You guys are still fighting the good fight. What does that mean to you?
I often look back and say, when do we stop with BEE, right? And for me, the simple answer to that question lies in when we have a normalized society, when the vast majority of the people in this country participate in the economic activity and the wealth, I think that's when the fight ends, and I'd love to have said, I think it'll happen in our lifetime, but it won't. Unfortunately.
No.
Having been involved in the struggle against apartheid, one of the things, that Dala Omar taught me was freedom in our lifetime, and there were days and months and weeks where we thought that would never happen in our lifetime. But as I started early on, we were fortunate to have witnessed democracy and freedom What we need to do is achieve economic emancipation.
Yeah.
And I think that's the part that allows me to wake up every morning feeling energized, saying the fight needs to continue. The fight is not over.
A luta continua. Talking about BEE, right? We've been in this space for many years. You were there right at the get-go. What, in your view, is the biggest misconception corporate South Africa has around BEE? There's been lots of conversation, not only today, not only yesterday, for many years. What, in your view, is the single biggest misconception around BEE?
I think there's this notion that it's giving and altruistic, whether it's shares or ownership, or whether it's a promotion, or whether it's developing somebody's skills or procuring goods or services. Actually, in all of those instances, every single one of those instances, it's an economic exchange, right? The difference is that you're going to get rewarded for doing the right economic exchange with the right people. It's impossible for our country and for the privileged few that have wealth to continue to enjoy that wealth, while the vast majority of people in our country remain in poverty. It's history will teach you that when you have, as we have, the most unequal society in the world, that it's not sustainable. And the only way that we actually grow is by sharing wealth, by sharing opportunities, and by making sure that we treat people fairly, not because of the color of their skin.
Yeah. You know, often enough, I get asked this question. I'm sure you get asked this question. What impactful work have you done? So I'm not going to ask you to talk about specific clients. Yeah. I think that may prejudice them and us. But we do amazing stuff. You know, I say this often enough. When we sit with executives in a boardroom, we create value. We create meaningful impact for them in their businesses. So I'm going to ask you to talk about an experience that we've had over the last 5-10 years, and I'm going to share something similar around where we have really created BEE impact for our clients.
You know, for me, the one that sticks out, because there are many, right?
Yeah.
But I think the one that sticks out for me was, the creation of a skills hub at a historically black university.
Yeah.
And the top student there, I mentored that student, but we also hired that guy, right? In another business that we were involved in a technology business that we were involved in, right? And for me, having gone and met him in Cape Town, and having gone and dropped him off at his shack, we took somebody that at the age of 8 headed a child-headed household. He was looking after 4 siblings because his mom passed away. And we had empowered him to the point where he was employed full-time, working on cutting-edge technology, and he's now employed somewhere else, right? So for me, that's the essence of empowerment. The other things that we do, they're big numbers, they're billions of rands of investment that we brought to the country and so forth. But this is the one that stands out for me the most.
Yeah, I'm going to share something, and I'm not going to name the clients. And so we've done work for a group in financial services. You know, when we first started with them way back when, it was, can you do this small piece of work, which led up to a bigger piece of work. Eventually, we put in place a BE strategy. And that's not the great work that we've done. Part of the impact they create, they provide educational support for students across South Africa. Not race or gender based, but across the board. Personally, I've had the privilege of mentoring those students through their studies and also mentoring them when they've started their own businesses. And to see this full circle where you impact the strategy, which leads to educational support, and you sitting on the other side, playing a very small part in helping somebody think about their career and their business, that's the impact that we create around BE. I'm going to switch gears. We've been in a number of businesses over the last 20 plus years. What do you think makes us still be in the same businesses?
You know, I think there are many things, but I think it fundamentally boils down to trust. You know, because over 27 years, there have been ups and downs. Let's be clear. It's not always been roses and champagne, right? Um, and I think in the tough times, when we have to make the tough calls, having a set of values that we both share and integrity and honesty and so forth. And I think that's the differentiator, you know. And I think that's not forged through superficial engagements and so
Yeah.
forth. It's forged, in the trenches of the fights that we fought, when having each other's backs, making sure that you could face me and I can face you, knowing that I didn't do something that I should be ashamed of. And I think it's also teaching each other with kind of mutual respect,
Yeah.
with understanding our relative strengths and weaknesses, and supporting each other where there's a weakness and where and I have many weaknesses and I also have many strengths. And I think we complement each other very well. But I think the foundation of the relationship is values, it's honesty, integrity, commitment. That for me is, I think, the bedrock of our relationship, which has spanned 27 years on and off in different businesses, in different industries. But it's always the fact that when I started the business and I needed somebody that I could count on, I knew exactly who to phone.
Yeah.
I didn't need to think about it twice.
Yeah. This is an important lesson for founders. I speak a lot about this, the notion of having co-founders. There's a yin-yang effect. There's a complementation of skills, experience, expertise, keeping each other honest, being there together for each other. But over and above that, trust, respect, integrity, that's what forges all these relationships. This is 27 years in the making. Second thing is, it's not always a bed of roses. We've had times where we haven't spoken, where we've been arguing, and we've also had great times where we've celebrated together. And that's what partnerships are all about. So my advice to founders, Ajay will say the same thing. Don't think you can do this on your own. Think about having other people in your business that can support you.
Can I add to that, Sanjay? I think it's important when you're choosing your co-founder or your partner that you complement each other. Having two people that are the same or similar, I think is not the answer here. I think it's finding somebody that, you know, complements your weaknesses and you complement their weaknesses. And I think for me, that's the one aspect that I would, strongly recommend you find. Also, somebody that you have a relationship with. Somebody, it's not somebody that you know since yesterday. And it will formulate over time, right? It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, interesting point. Spoken a bit about business. We've spoken a bit about our partnership. So I'm going to share something with everybody that you perhaps somewhat know but don't really know. This is an avid photographer that's been profiled globally. He's going to be embarrassed. He's probably telling me, why are you telling all these people this stuff? So I'm switching gears. When you think about life, it's not always about work, right?
Yeah.
It's also about living out your passion. So tell us a bit about your photography, the passion, where it was born out of. Again, saying this again, he's been profiled not only domestically, but globally at international photographic events where his exceptional pictures are up there for others to see. Sorry,
I
I'm
am embarrassed. I am embarrassed.
Sorry,
right
embarrassing
now,
you,
right?
And that's part of the deal.
So yeah, a lot of people don't know that in my professional world that I'm a photographer. It comes from my father and my uncle, right? Who were both avid photographers, and so that inspired this creativity in me. My first roller film that I was in standard 5 or 6. We went to the Kruger National Park on a school tour, and I took a camera with me, and I shot what I thought was fantastic shots. And I came back and I developed the spool, and not a single photo came out. And as much as I was disheartened, my uncle then said to me, "Okay, let me teach you what to do, what not to do, how to take photos, etc." And I think that early inspiration continued for a number of years. One of my late best friends, Rex, we went to the Grand Prix in Malaysia in 2004. And I could not take a single photo of this racing car that was zooming past until I learned the techniques of how to take photographs. So a number of years later, we went to Hungary, and I got some of the most amazing photos. But it's perseverance, it's skills, right? And it doesn't happen overnight. And so recently, last year, in fact, I decided to subject my photography to judgment, and it's daunting. Make no mistake about it; it's absolutely daunting to put yourself out there. I've had lots of rejection. I've had lots of people tell me that I'm not good enough, and that they won't exhibit me and so forth. But I've also, in the same token, had lots of successes. And I think in life, as in business, perseverance, believing in yourself and backing yourself is important. Also, having a thick skin, right? Make no mistake. When in business, you're going to get rejections. People will tell you all the time, you're too expensive, or we chose somebody else. That's fine. That's part of the cause. But persevere, believe in yourself, back yourself, and I think it's a fantastic way also of complementing your work, right? I think you have to have work-life balance. Finding a hobby, whether it's golf or whether it's photography, do something that allows you to think creatively, to act creatively, to express yourself creatively. Because I think one of the top skills that business people need is creative problem solving. So find something that allows you to think and solve problems creatively.
Yeah, I share this very openly now. It's an internal joke in our Blacklight team. Friday for me is no meetings Friday. It's not no work Friday.
It's golf Friday. Let's be clear.
So hang on, I'm getting to that. I'm getting to that. So some of you may know this. I play golf almost every Friday. Besides it being a passion, it's my time to think for myself. Whether it's about work, whether it's about life, relationships, people, just to have time away. And similarly, that's what you do with your photography. It's your break away from life and normality. Often enough, whether you're an executive, a business owner, in middle management, whatever it is, are you having me time? And so Fridays for me is me time for myself. Happens to be with mates. We play golf. We have a couple of drinks. We have lots of laughs. We're out there in nature. But my biggest encouragement is make me time. I make me time every single day, Monday to Sunday, because that's an important ingredient. And the me time is me having time away from work. And by the way, the business we're in is not work. We really enjoy what we do. Here's another point that you made mention of. You've got to back yourself in the first instance. If you don't believe in yourself and you don't back yourself, don't expect anybody else to do that. And that's something you've learned, not only in the business, even you putting yourself out there for the photography, you have to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Not to say you are the best or otherwise, but if you're not believing in yourself, who the hell is going to put your picture up in an exhibition somewhere in the middle of Europe?
Yeah.
Nobody else.
And I think it's an important lesson, that back yourself, but continue to grow and develop, right? Like I'm still developing my photography skills, business skills, and so forth. So it's a lifelong learning experience.
Yeah. We've been speaking for a long time, so I just want to try and bring this to a bit of a close. Oh, Blacklight Consulting business. Where to next?
It's a difficult question to answer, right? I think it needs to go beyond the two of us. I think we need to start thinking about succession. I think, we need to start developing the strategic thinking of our staff members, finding other niches and gaps, and really making sure that the business, which is 15 years old, grows and develops into something which will be around in 30 and 50 years time, right? And if you think about every single business from Alan Gray to Pick and Pay started small.
Correct.
So, but that vision to say, actually, this has the potential to grow and continue beyond the founders is such an important step.
Yeah, I'm just going to pick up on that. And at some point, our staff will hopefully at some point we say, okay, I guess these guys are talking to us. You know, back in the day, 25, 30 years ago, we fought a very different struggle in professional services. Nobody backed us. Nobody believed in us. And at some point, we actually felt, well, there's these people of color, and let's just try and see what we can do. That landscape's changed a lot. But for us, it came down to a couple of things. Constant learning. We got to where we are. We learn every day, but every day is a learning journey. Backing yourself. For business leaders, entrepreneurs, founders, executives, the business is not you. And that's something we are talking about a lot more of late, is that the business has to be beyond us. It's not so much the letting go. We are ready to let go. Yes, it's hard. It gets harder. But on the other side, is somebody able to want to take on that opportunity? But as the leader, we have to acknowledge this business is beyond us. We're on holiday. We are sick. We want to take some time off. Business has to carry on without us. And that's a very important lesson for founders, executives, leaders. Build your business to exist without you. Make yourself redundant in business.
Absolutely.
I must say, I think we're getting it a lot better. Credit to my staff, and so I'm going to actually acknowledge our staff. They do a lot of the work for us. We still play an important role in the business, but they do a lot of the work for us. I'm going to bring this to a close with a couple of short things. This one I haven't prepared you for. Tea or coffee?
Tea.
I have to tell the story about Ajay's coffee story, right? So
no,
some of, that's why I have to tell it. We at home stopped having sugar for many years. But one mister, I educated him about espressos and double espressos on one of our business trips overseas. But this guy has 2 sugars in a double espresso. But we'll get into that. Whiskey or gin?
Gin.
Have you ever tried whiskey out of interest?
I have.
And?
I did a whiskey tasting in Scotland.
Oh, wow.
It's interesting. I don't like the peaty whiskey.
Yeah.
But I would always choose a gin over whiskey.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Ajay is also a wine connoisseur. Sorry.
A wine snob.
Yeah, see, I was going to say that, right? He's actually a wine snob,
yes.
Right? So back in the day, he had a very big collection. It's largely gone now. But he's a wine snob, which is great to have people like him when you go out to dinner, because you don't have to worry about what wine to pick up. This guy's going to do it for you.
Wait. Let me tell your listeners that he's a coffee snob and drags me halfway around the country to have the best coffee. So
yeah, I have a coffee snob, absolutely. You and I share a big passion for sport, right? 9 years ago, we had the privilege of going to watch our beloved team at Anfield. Tell us a bit about that experience 9, 10 years ago.
So we're both Liverpool supporters. So let me declare that up front. And we have been for as long as we known each other. And in that stadium, when they sang "You'll Never Walk Alone," I can still feel the hair in the back of my neck stand now. Because the emotion, the belief or disbelief that I was sitting in that stadium amongst those fans with my partner, is a feeling that I'll never forget. Sharing that time and that moment with somebody that is equally passionate about that team and that sport is the best feeling ever.
I have to share this story. We did take a third person who knew absolutely nothing about football, whose baby was about to be born 4 days later. I'm not going to mention him. He's going to kill the both of us. But that's what you got to do in life, right? You got to live out your passion. I mean, going to Anfield to watch a live experience of a football game. Fortunately, we won, so it wasn't a wasted trip, right? In the freezing cold.
Yeah.
By the way, 8 o'clock, middle of the week, Wednesday night, end of February, early March, I got hypothermia. I was like shaking like this, and that's part of the experience. And those are the experiences that we can still talk about 9, 10 years later. I'm going to ask you for the closing thought, Ajay. What is something you live by? Motto, something that stays with you all the time?
I had the privilege of engaging with many leaders in the struggle. And I think the one thing that you and I both, I think, get upset about is when people question our integrity.
Yeah.
And I think that, I would live and die by my integrity. Even if nobody's watching, nobody is there to see. It's me and my heart that has to know that I lived my life with purpose and integrity.
Yeah. I'm going to share the story, not mentioning names, business, or whatever it is. Over the years, we've been involved in a number of businesses, and we've walked away because of integrity issues. From clients that we didn't take on, from business partners that we didn't bring on board, and a whole range of things. And that's the one thing that we hold dearly is when people question our integrity, I want to walk away. We get very irate. We won't use this language on this, but we get extremely upset. And that's the one thing amongst many other things, but that is the one thing above everything else that you got to have for yourself. When you look at yourself in the mirror, there's nobody else looking at you. Are you comfortable going to bed at night saying that I'm living a life of purpose and integrity? For me, one of the key things I live by every day, and for me, it's now become second habit, right? What can I do today to positively impact the life of one other person, whomever that may be? And these are small things I do. Smile at people, let people cross the road when you're in your car, help people that are in a store if they can't pick up their package, open the door for your spouse. Do small things that brings a small smile to somebody's face. So that's my challenge for you. Ajay, thank you very, very much. Before we close off, just want to sort of summarize some of the things we spoke about. Long-term partnerships. Be in a partnership relationship because you want to be, not because you're forced to be. We're not forced to do any of what we do. We want to do this stuff. Values, paramount to the way you live. BEE, the fight will continue, and we are agents for that change. And the last thought for me is work hard, play even harder. If you don't find that work-life balance in life, it's actually not worth it. No amount of money, no amount of client accolades mean absolutely nothing if you're not enjoying your life. Okay, thank you very much. This has been great. Catching up.
Not as bad as I was expecting it, I must admit.
So as you guys would have seen, I've got like a whole bunch of questions. I've prepared for the stuff. I didn't really show him all the stuff, but as you would have seen, this is a conversation.
Yeah.
Right? Thank you very much, guys. Thanks. I'll be in conversation with a corporate executive in the next couple of weeks. So looking forward to chatting to you again. Cheers for now. Bye-bye.